So here's a question for you. How come we only have user experience designers? It's not like that they've got the monopoly on influencing the user experience. Take a developer, for example. A developer works on things like performance, security, and makes many other decisions on a daily basis that impacts the user experience. If you're a developer, I think it's time that you start trumpeting your involvement and your commitment to user experience. It's time for you to become a user experience developer. Now, my reasoning for this is because user experience is becoming crucial to the business success of your organization, and your senior management team are beginning to wake up to that. Look, take traditional marketing for example. Traditional marketing is failing. People are blind to advertising and they have to resort to installing things like ad blockers. But they do listen to friends and family. Heck, they'll even listen to complete strangers before they'll listen to a marketer. Companies are becoming aware of this. They're realizing that traditional marketing is no longer enough, and that if you want your customers to recommend you, then you have to keep them happy. If you provide them with a great user experience, then they're going to tell the world about that. But equally, if you give them a bad experience, they're going to be quick to criticize you online, and that is very damaging. This means user experience is becoming a key differentiator in almost all sectors. And that means whatever your role, if you can show that you bring benefit to the user experience, management is more likely to value you. In many organizations, developers have a big impact on user experience, as big an impact as any designer. Designers often just produce Photoshop comps, but these mock-ups of a user experience are only a fraction of what it takes to create a great user experience. Really, they're just user interfaces. It falls to the developer to turn these static images into a working, breathing and usable site, a usable experience. And that's why developers are absolutely crucial in creating user experiences and need to trumpet their role. Think for a moment about all the decisions that often fall to a developer. Things like, how is validation going to work on this form? Or what wording will appear on this error message? How do we make the page load faster? What trade-offs are we going to make between security and the usability of passwords? How is this page going to work on a mobile device, and how are we going to deal with that obscure edge case? The list goes on and on. The truth is that developers are a crucial part of user experience, but like so much that developers do, nobody really notices what they do unless something goes wrong. We've all suffered at the hands of a developer who doesn't see user experience as part of their job. Country drop-down menus are one of my personal favourites. Developers copy long lists of countries without stopping to ask whether all of these countries are needed. I swear to you that I've used a country drop-down menu in the past that included Antarctica. I challenge you to find any company online that ships to Antarctica. Then of course there are error messages. If I see one more 404 error page with the words, "This is not the page you're looking for," I swear I will scream. Of course, designers are just as culpable as developers when it comes to this one. But the list goes on. Constraints on data entry that frustrate users, passwords that are too complex to ever remember, and form fields that the developer should have hidden unless they're particularly relevant to that user. You could argue these things are the kind of things that a designer should pick up on too, and that's a fair argument. But the truth is, designers often walk away once they've handed across their Photoshop file. They're either too busy or too distracted to follow up the designs that they've produced, and that's why it often falls to the developer. You see, creating a great user experience should be the responsibility of everybody, not just the designer. Unfortunately, the idea that UX is a designer's role is so deeply ingrained that there's really little written about user experience development. Frustratingly, if a developer wants to understand user experience, they have to wade through a load of information that's primarily written for designers. Now I'm hoping to do something about that. I'm in the middle of putting together a training course for developers, one that introduces them to the basic ideas of user experience and the role that they can play, something that can empower developers to adopt a user experience mandate. If that sounds of interest, then you can go along to my website and sign up for notifications when it's available. But in the meantime, I recommend that you do 3 things. First, you make sure that you're sitting next to the designer, working with them as closely as you possibly can. Don't be afraid to ask to see their work in progress and raise any issues that you might be having and decisions that you're making with the designer instead of working alone. By doing so, you will learn loads about the user experience, but you'll also educate the designer about some of the broader issues of user experience that they often overlook. Second, make sure you sit in on any usability test sessions. In fact, make sure that you're recommending areas that need to be tested that should be covered in these sessions. Consider any decisions that you make as a hypothesis. So as you're kind of designing and developing the website and you're making decisions that impact the user, think of these as something that needs to be tested, a hypothesis that needs to be taken into user testing. If that is something that's not happening within your organization, then make it happen. You make the user testing happen. Don't wait for the designer or somebody else to do that. It doesn't even need to happen face to face. You can use a service like usertesting.com that's cheap and fast in order to get you results. Finally, adopt the title of user experience developer. Even if it's not official, start calling yourself one. Everybody says that job titles don't matter, but I have to say I disagree. If you call yourself a user experience developer, then 2 things will happen. First, you'll work harder to live up to that title by putting user needs first. Second, people will start consulting you about user experience issues. That way you'll stop being an outsider in creating a better user experience. You will be right in the middle of it, changing people's perception of user experience and your role in it.